Welcome to the space between heaven on earth. This is a companion podcast to Awakening Heaven on Earth, created as a space for reflection, conversation, and lived experience. Here, we enter the pause between knowing and becoming, between insight and embodiment, between heaven and earth. These conversations are not about answers or conclusions. They are about presence, about listening, about reasoning together, about meeting one another honestly in the unfolding journey of awakening. I'm your host, Jeffrey Aylor. Again, welcome and thank you for entering the space between with us. Good morning and welcome to the Space Between, Episode 8, The Body of Unity, More Than a Body, Fully a Body. In our recent conversations, we've explored unity with God, unity with the self, unity with others, and unity with the earth. Today, we come to something incredibly close and incredibly intimate, the body itself. There's a common belief in our culture that all we are is a physical body. That identity, awareness, and experience are entirely the product of our biology and chemistry. And yet many people across traditions and through their own experience sense that there's something more, an awareness, a presence, an identity that feels deeper than physical form by itself. So today we're not here to argue one side or the other. We're here to explore it, to question, to see how we might understand how the body really shapes how we live in it and how we relate to it. So based on that, again, the body, we don't see it as an obstacle to unity. It actually, I think, is probably one of the clearest and easiest ways for us to express unity. So based on that, we know it breathes, connects, responds, adapts. It carries memories. It receives nourishment from the earth. It allows us to experience relationship. Perhaps unity isn't about choosing between the body and spirit, but recognizing how they participate with each other and how they work together to create an experience of being alive. So based on that, I'm really grateful. We're joined here by Joel, my son Joel, and my dear friend Joe Dermody. And each of us, as we say before, always brings our own individual lived experience and relationship to this conversation and how we relate to the body, whether it's, health, spirituality, awareness, struggle, gratitude. There's any number of ways that we can relate to it. But before we move on, I want to just stop for a second before we go into the reflection questions. And I'd just like for each one of you to just share a thought around when you hear the body of unity, what arises in your thoughts?
So when I hear the body of unity, I don't think of anything abstract. I think of the body as a meeting place. It's where breath and awareness and emotion and our environment all intersect. It feels less like something that I possess and more like a living interface of which I experience this world.
There's a portion in the book of Genesis that I've read it so many times, and yet I've had to rethink it so many times now about creation and man. There's a point in Genesis 2 where we read about the creation, and then there's another account in Genesis 3 where we read about the creation. And I'm thinking, is that one creation? Is that one creation spoken of twice? Is that two different creations there of man? And what I've come to the conclusion is that in that particular reference, God created man in his image, which was spirit. He didn't have a physical body at that point. And Genesis 3 is when the physical body gets created and he puts that spirit in it. you have to ask, well, why did we have to have a physical body? Well, because that's the way. He said, I don't have a man to till the earth, because man as a spirit could not physically interact with the earth, right? He could not manipulate the earth because he's spirit. So he had to give it a natural physical element so that it could feel, touch, and interact with the earth. At least that's the conclusion I've come to at this point, based on what I've been reading. So I absolutely agree with that point, Joel, that it's a means, a vehicle, right, through which spirit has opportunity to experience earth.
Yeah, so it's funny because I have it written down here that the body is the space between, right? It is that vessel that allows us to truly experience this human journey, right? It's that blending of the spirit and the earth. It is that full body of unity, right, between heaven and earth.
I think this week we've heard actually the last couple of weeks in our Reiki training that our body is a bridge.
Yeah.
It's the bridge between, right? Reiki teaches the 3 diamonds, which is the diamond that's up around your forehead, which is the heaven. Down here at your just below your navel is the earth. And then your heart center, the 3rd diamond, is the place where the 2 merge. The energy of earth and energy of heaven merge in your heart. Really a beautiful symbol. And it lays on top of other beliefs around energy, obviously the chakra systems and things like that. Just 2 different perspectives toward the same thing, personally. Mm-hmm. Right? So absolutely wonderful. Yeah. So for me, I've had to unlearn what I think the body is and how we're to relate to it. Because being raised in a very strict Christian household, the body was always something that we're to be covering up, ashamed of, don't touch, don't feel, don't I'll enjoy, don't, and it's like, well, why am I supposed to be so afraid of this thing now?
Yeah.
I don't want, at this point, I don't get that. I thought it made sense, but that's under the whole system of fear, right? Not the system of love and unity.
And control in a lot of ways.
Oh my gosh. What a terrible thing to design it the way it is and then tell you can't
enjoy it, can't use it.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense to me now. No. And I'm like, but that would be a terrible irony. And I think my logic now has been overcome by good reason. So, So with that, let's move into these questions. Again, the intention here is always to consider, to think. We'll probably never come to full conclusion on any of it. And our goal here is not to improve the body or define identity, once and for all. Everybody is where they are in their knowledge and experience and relationship with the body. It's simply to notice and think, how do we relate to the body? How do we define ourselves? And where might unity already be quietly present within? So let's begin with our first reflection question. This one's kind of focused on identity, our identity and physical form. So when I think about who I am, how much of that identity is tied to my physical body, and how much feels connected to awareness, personality, or something less tangible than the material body?
Yeah, for most of my life, identity was heavily tied to my body. How it looked, how it performed, how it felt. Always been a shorter guy, so always had that to all those jokes, short jokes given to me. So it was always in the back of my mind. But over time, I've noticed there's something aware of all those changes and all those things with the body. So, the body shifts, my mood shifts, but there was an awareness that always remained. I always was that awareness behind the scenes, watching it happen. And that's what started to fascinate me. And that kind of came to me when I read Michael Singer's book.
The Untethered Soul.
The Untethered Soul, where he basically made it very apparent that you are the seer behind everything. You're the awareness behind it. You're not your body. And that really helped me realize that I'm not tied. I'm obviously in this body having this experience. It gives me limitations. It gives me experiences, both good and bad. Not right or wrong, but good, and not necessarily good and bad. Experiences. But that it's not me, that my awareness of who I actually am, my identity isn't tied to the actual physical body the way I always thought it was before. So that was a huge eye-opening experience for me.
So for me, it's always been about my body, in the past. So I was the athletic one in high school. I was fast. I was, again, short too. I've always been physically challenged as well.
That's just a comparison, though, right? I mean,
that's right. Absolutely.
Everything is relative,
right?
That's absolutely. When I was when I was younger, and that was a benefit actually in a lot of cases, depending on what sport I was playing, right?
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I was the short, fat guy, right? I was darn near the perfect shape, a sphere. And that's how I identified myself, right? And always made fun of myself, but internally was probably hurting a little bit there. And then I was also the diabetic one, I had diabetes for over 30 years, and I found myself identifying with that. And because of that, I was always the colorblind, electrical engineer. But that was defining myself as that. Always because of my physical limitations, and never just thinking outside of my body, though. Now, it's kind of fun because I realize there is another aspect that isn't just my physical body. And it's kind of, I would say funny or weird or strange, but really it makes a lot more sense now that I'm learning more and more how when some of that realization comes out, that all of a sudden my physical ailments and body start to get better. When you realize that there's more outside of just your physical ailments and issues. So, yeah, I'd say so. In the past, I've always only thought about my body. And now that I am becoming more aware and finding that there's a lot more.
I think we've all been trained to relate who we are individually with our bodies. We're told that we're a certain age, and that age is really based on our body. It's not based on our spirit or our soul. We're male and female, so we relate our gender to body. When I believe now we have both male and female gender within us, all of us do. And there's often that's what confuses, I think, a lot of people, is that they have both masculine and feminine gender within them, yet their body is showing them physically that they are a specific gender, and we relate gender to that. I think we've got, again, you all have described physical characteristics. I think, I've always been average. I always describe myself, I am the most average person in the world. Average height, average weight, average looks, average everything. I am nondescript in many ways. But I think most all of us start off in that first camp of people who believe that we are our body, that's our image. And this because a lot of people spend a significant amount of time, energy, and money on their body. It becomes an idol, I think, to us in many ways because it's seen. We can see it. And I've come to understand that we're not just a physical body. We actually are an energy body. We are a spiritual body. We are a mental body. We We have multiple bodies that all function together as one cohesive system. And we'll touch on this as we go through not only this session today, because today we're really focused on that material body. I heard someone the other day call it the meat suit. It's a meat suit. I'm like, okay, well, that's a very fundamental materialist view of your body. It's a meat suit. I think in many cases, we actually choose our bodies. And I think we choose the experience we need and want to have in a body. And we'll talk more about that too as we go, because there are, I think, examples in most every wisdom tradition where the body physically is used as a lesson. It's used as a tool to teach. Mm-hmm. And I also think that the body is a communication tool. It's a source of communication between spirit and earth. And we'll touch on that as I think we go through a lot of these questions. But I have dramatically changed my thoughts and opinions about the body, its purpose, its design, and the relationship of all the physical things we get the opportunity to experience and all the spiritual elements that we experience as well. So this is going to be a lot of fun, I can already tell. Mm-hmm. So this next question, which is much more around how culture and society and family and various things impress on us a belief, So what messages have you received explicitly or implicitly about the body being the totality of who you are?
Cultural message I absorbed was that the body's either something to optimize or something to fix. Very rarely was it framed as something just to listen to. And that conditioning shapes how I inhabit myself. And oftentimes it's more critical than it is compassionate. I find that I'm very critical of my shortcomings and things that I would like to do, but I'm limited by my physical body. So, for example, I just said it actually yesterday while practicing guitar. I wish I had longer fingers. Being such a short guy, I actually don't have the longest fingers, and sometimes that inhibits how I can play guitar in certain times. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that I have to deal with. But from like growing up, you try to optimize your body, especially when playing sports. You try to make yourself stronger, to be better and stronger than the person next to you and the person you're competing against. In health, you've got people who have who do have diseases and illnesses, and they feel like they've got to fix something. And sometimes that is the case, but sometimes it stems from not listening to what the body was telling you prior to. And that was a big eye-opening thing for me, was to, once you start to learn the body talks, that if you're willing to listen, it will tell you what's going on. So pain is a big point. There's a big way the body talks to you. You can feel certain things in energies inside your body, and if you pay attention to those subtle messages, it's trying to tell you, what you're doing is not working. We feel that way sometimes, even when you eat food. Certain foods you shouldn't eat. You're like, I shouldn't eat that, and you eat it, and you feel it. It's talking to you immediately. That's a real quick feedback. But we tend to not listen to our body as much as anything, and we're just basically using it as an object, and we need to make it look pretty and shiny, or make it look really nice in our own societal standards, and that can be very, very hard to keep up with, and it causes a lot of anxiety, and a lot of angst in a lot of people. But I've always said, you imagine how many billions of dollars of industry would go out of business overnight if just women specifically woke up in the morning and liked the way they looked.
Oh my
gosh. Didn't have to put on makeup and do their hair and things and put ourselves out there in such a way that we have to present ourselves. All those businesses would be bankrupt overnight.
Well, if you think about how many businesses exist based on the maintenance of the image of the body.
Correct. Yeah.
When you look at how many messages we get, look at models, whether they're male or female.
Yeah.
The way that their bodies are shaped, the way that their bodies are presented as the perfect image of a body. When I look back at art, specifically, you look at the art of the Renaissance period and you see, first of all, a lot of naked people, right?
No judgment there.
Right? There's a lot of naked people,
yeah.
Which
was,
in my life, the cultural conditioning I've had,
right.
That's negative. That's bad.
Right.
that you shouldn't
look at
see
the body
that.
that
Don't
way.
look at the body. The body, that's shameful. It's shame. Shame. That's the thing I want to put. We
shame the
culturally
body?
have conditioned
Yes.
to shame the body.
Yes.
What period are you talking about?
So the Renaissance period.
But just say that again. What the Renaissance period? So just throwing that out there. They were going through a Renaissance.
A Renaissance,
though, at the time.
Correct.
That's right. Yeah.
And so all these images, though, at that time of bodies were not these thin, living hangers, as I like to call them,
right.
models today in many ways. They were fuller. They were more, robust, and you could see health and vitality. And
Think about why.
That's right.
So you're talking about a time where food scarcity was a
That's
problem.
right. They were glorifying food.
They were glorifying, right? So basically, they were seeing somebody who had a little bit of extra,
Yeah.
and there was a little bit of abundance.
Yeah, they had abundance. They had money. They were able to eat and do whatever they wanted. So they looked at them as being the optimum person in society.
That's what everybody wanted.
And now we have it flipped, where we have food abundance, and we have too much bad food, and we've got basically too much energy we're carrying around with us. And now we're wanting the exact opposite. We're wanting to see somebody who doesn't have that. We're wanting to see that skinny person as opposed to a person who's more well-rounded.
They're glorifying what everybody wants.
Right. I mean, it's just the opposite of what we have. It's just we always want what we can't, we want the opposite of what we have currently.
Well, that's the impact, though, of polarity, which is one of the Hermetic principles we'll touch on, throughout this whole process. And people tend to gravitate toward the poles, the opposites, the extremes, versus that balance or moderate middle, or that, it's interesting because this week in our Reiki training, we learned that in the Japanese history of that, they viewed it as a positive thing to have a belly that protruded, which is why you see images of the Buddha and various others, right? Where, it shows abundance and it shows balance.
Right.
And, the example they give is a sumo wrestler. If you look at the body of a sumo wrestler and how they do their stances and various things like that, and everything is centered here just under the belly, which is they call the hara, right? The center of your being, the core of your being. And that's where your balance and that's where your strength and everything is maintained. And you watch that's how they center themselves in their stances and things like that. But to look at a body like that and say, ooh, that's powerful.
Well, they're very powerful.
Most people don't look at that now and say, ooh, that's powerful, or that's really attractive, or that's really.
Right.
So there's a significant amount of cultural conditioning that comes from religion. It comes from the media significantly.
Yeah.
I think all those things create images, which is why a lot of people don't like social media, because there are images being created of what society may think or act is an appropriate looking body.
What the collective consciousness thinks is the optimal body.
Right.
But it shows both sides in the social media, right? It allows us here to show that balance.
Right. Anyway, I find that the cultural pressure on image, physical image and looks. Here's another really key point I'd want to build on from what you said, Joel, and that was, look at the amount of businesses that would just crumble if people were not being driven.
The health industry, beauty industry, it would all be very, very small compared to what it is right now. They're billion-dollar industries that would just not have a whole lot to go off of.
Well, one of the things that many people they believe is happening right now is that the vibration of our energy levels is rising, the frequency is rising on Earth, and that we're getting ready to go through a major transition. We're going to be shifting from current systems to new systems, and the old systems are going to crumble. And I believe as people awaken and realize that the images that they're being fed are not true, that as they come to realize themselves what their body is, what the purpose is, that we will see a lot of things crumble as a result of that. That's not always bad. It's painful. It'll be painful for a lot of people in a lot of ways, but it's also going to be freedom in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So for me, it was a lot of both sides of it. So I've been very fortunate to have a great team of doctors that did tell me to listen to my body, both physical therapists, going all the way from sports on up. You got to listen to your body. You have to only go so far. Listen to what it's telling you. But then you had the coaches on the other side of it, or my senseis when I was doing martial arts that said, you got to push harder, condition it, make it stronger. And then you have people like your parents or your friends, right, that are on both sides. Mm-hmm. Well, just suck it up. You'll be all right. You'll be okay. Or, are you okay? How bad is it? So you get this duality again from different people about the same thing. And so it's tough. Who do you listen to? How does it work? Who are you supposed to listen to? What's going on with this body that you have? How are you supposed to listen to it? And it's very confusing growing up. So this brand new vehicle that you have that you're put into to come down here and experience this whole experience, how are you supposed to deal with it? How does this work? And you're getting different advice from these grown-ups, and you're learning and unlearning and trying to remember. And who knows, growing up as a kid, how are you supposed to do this? And even now as an adult, I don't know how to deal with this. So it's a journey.
Just look at how much energy is spent worrying about it.
That's right. So, just for today, I'm not going to worry.
Yeah, just for today, I am not going to worry about it.
And it truly is liberating. Yeah. It's liberating and amazing what happens when you don't. And there's lots of ways you can figure out and try to figure out how this.
Well, there's moderation again. Some people will totally neglect their body, and there's error in that. Some people worship their body, and there's error in that. Mm-hmm. It's the balance. It's the moderation. I love my home. I love the things that I have that are part of what allow me to live and experience life, but I don't worship them. But I do spend the time and the energy and whatever money is needed to maintain them well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And where is that balance between, again, the material and the spiritual and everything else? And I think it all still comes back to what we discussed a lot last week, right? And then it is what it is.
Well, I think that,
right?
And you touched on something there that where we treat the body as a separate entity. We don't realize that the mental part of us, the spiritual part of us, have complete effect on the actual physical body.
That's
so
right.
If you just keep basically trying to fix the outer body without working on your mental part of you and your spiritual part of you, you're basically just going to keep putting lipstick on a pig. It's not going to work.
That's right.
It's still going to be just a pig.
It's all intertwined,
right?
It's all unity. It's all
correct
togetherness. And you have to look at it as the body unity, right? It's all intertwined.
Yeah, and our society is completely focused on just the physical part. I mean, look at our mental health in this country; it's in shambles. Spiritually, as well, is growing and getting better, but still, there's just complete disconnect between those three aspects, and that's why our physical bodies are struggling so much.
Well, that's just it. The harder we strive to improve our physical bodies, it's not going to happen without the foundation of improving the spiritual aspects of our being, because the body is not proactive. It's reactive.
Correct.
And we have our cause and effect mixed up.
Right.
I believe the body is communicating to us what's going on inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's manifesting outwardly things that are going on inwardly. That again goes back to Hermetic principle of as within, so without.
Mm-hmm.
As above, so below, the law of correspondence.
Correct.
And the body is communicating to you a physical manifestation that represents something internal that you need to pay attention to, but are not. And the way the universe gets your attention is through the physical manifestation of pain or discomfort or
disease,
dis-ease, which is It's so fun because our wonderful Reiki instructor used that exact phrasing of dis-ease, which is in our book. It's in our books. That's exactly how we view disease, is dis-ease. You're not at ease about something, and it manifests physically. You go through periods of stress and you're mentally not at ease. Your body reacts to that, and you see outward manifestation of that stress in your body. Science is proving that. That's not.
Oh yeah.
It totally makes sense. So we were talking earlier this week about the I am statements that people make, and we make them all the time. I am sick. Well, guess what? The universe heard. You're sick. You are sick. Guess what? The universe is going to provide you. Sick. You're going to be sick because you associate and relate yourself to being sick. I am sick. I am this. I am that. You catch yourself in your talk, and then watch how what you're saying manifests itself in your body. Physically in your body.
And they're proving that now scientifically, about the thoughts basically manifest in the body. The what you think and how your mindset is will completely affect your physical biology.
So we say these things unconsciously. If we can gain consciousness over how we say and what we say, I believe then we have the ability to consciously manage our outward physical experiences. Now that some people will struggle with that, and I do believe we choose some physical issues to experience because it's part of our learning that we've come to have it to do. I think of people who are born with a broken body. I had a very dear friend growing up. He had osteogenesis imperfecta, which was called brittle bone disease, and he never got any bigger than a small child. But he lived a full life. And I am confident that he came here to have that experience and to show not only himself, but the world that you're not limited by your body. You can be and do and accomplish all kinds of wonderful and big things in the world. And it's not contingent on the stature or the strength or the health of your physical body to do it.
I think of like Stephen Hawking as well, someone who was a brilliant mind, who basically said that it was actually a gift to have the physical limitations that he did because it allowed him to focus on his work. The things that he didn't require physical capabilities. And if he had the distractions that most people do by having a normal physical body, he would not have been able to do what he did and learn what he did about the universe. So I think he
alchemized his situation, right? And I love the concept of alchemy, where you take something that is lesser or negative or broken, whatever the condition it's in, and you transmute it or transform it.
Well, I mean, he had a choice. I mean, in that case, you basically, it can completely wreck you if you let it. Something like that completely change how you handle it. But if you fight against what is, all that does is cause suffering. If you can't change it, you just have to accept what is and then use what is to your advantage as much as possible. That's what he did. He could have completely let that, define him and cause tremendous suffering. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm not saying that it was, he's not saying it was an amazing thing. He just said it was basically something that allowed him to refocus his energy on something else.
But he recognized that his consciousness was separate from that.
Correct.
His body.
It had nothing to do
with it. He
with
wasn't defining himself by his physical body.
Right.
And any limitations that he may have felt. Again, whether you're tall, short, heavy, thin, are.
And it's something that I find fascinating about these great minds, these incredible physicists. You think that they would basically be all science, but every one of them that learned the deep underlying parts of physics of the universe, all they're doing is they're referencing God. They see God in all of it, and they find it to be fascinating.
Yeah, they're just using different terminology to describe the same source, right? That all these other sacred traditions and are trying to do based on their language, their culture, based on their symbolism.
Yeah, they're just using different words for the same thing. But they're just. But in our society, we tend to think science and spirituality are separate, and they're not. these scientists, you think these scientists are like, there's no way God doesn't exist. I can prove it. No, the more they keep finding, the more they keep saying, yeah, God's definitely there.
Yeah. It's kind of hard though, when you've built your whole foundation, just like a lot of religions do, on a dogmatic position, like materialism.
Right.
Materialists.
That it's like a machine. Yeah.
Yeah. Materialists look at the body as that this is all that exists.
Yeah.
That's the foundation of that initial belief we were talking about that many people have, is materialism.
Right.
The body is nothing more than this material. When it dies, it's gone. It's there's nothing more, right? That the brain is the seat of consciousness, which I think is slowly but now more steadily being questioned, and they're catching up now, to your point, with the theory or the concept that, and they won't say God, but they're going to say source, universe.
Fine.
I don't care what they call it. They're still describing and explaining.
I've even gone away from just using the word God just because of the bad connotations it carries and the reactions people have to hearing that word. So finding a different way of saying the exact same thing, I'm okay with that. It doesn't take anything away, but the same power still within that statement.
Well, I'm learning to be situational in how I say it, depending on who I'm talking to, based
Sure.
on how they tend to perceive things. Because you're right. I think different terms will turn people off. If you use the term God with some people, it turns them off. Doesn't me. I still see God, universe, source, divine, the divine intelligence, whatever you want to name. I am okay with whatever term you choose, but not everybody is.
Right.
So I'm okay referring to God as universe or as source or as, think of any name, right? Brahman, whatever, right? So.
Yeah.
And isn't it nice when we just put a little bit of thought into how we word things, how much nicer it can be with the conversation? There's a lot of people too that will just say whatever because that's how they feel, and they don't take the time to just consider how other people feel. And you just take a couple moments just to determine how other people will take your comments.
Right, and realize that words do matter.
Words matter.
How you say something, or the context and the connotations of things are tremendously huge.
This is where wouldn't telepathy just be fantastic? Just because then they can just understand your meaning so much
100%. Just to know, as opposed to having to try to explain it and have that complete limitation of words.
Man,
I think about I think about that anytime I need quiet time. I just think of Carl Jung, who basically just says, anytime I have interactions with people, I need a few days of quiet just to get over the futility of words. It's just overwhelming how the words they're not important. If you can just sit in a sense of knowing, it's so much better than trying to explain it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. I know we're driving the bus off. I know we're driving the bus off the path, and I apologize for that. But
no. But I love the kind of let me keep the bus going in that other path. There's a story in the Old Testament about the Tower of Babel, the period at which God confounded language. Up until that point, there was only one language on the earth. He was concerned in that story about the power, the godlike power that was being demonstrated by mankind. And being a jealous God in that story and not wanting them to become the fullness of what they were in creation, he confounded language. That was the beginning of the confusion based on words and language. I believe the language that they used now was telepathy. I don't think they communicated with words prior to that. I think all communication was telepathic. It was through symbols. It was a much more complete and perfect way of communicating than what words were. So I believe that is, if you believe that story, or the story is teaching an allegory of the limitation of words and language in explaining anything. Most anyone who has a near-death experience will come back. And when you ask them to describe it, they said, I can't describe it. Words don't do it justice. Words cannot describe the color I saw, the things I felt, the love, the unity that I experienced are beyond words.
It's ineffable, but I just knew.
I just knew.
Hmm.
And all the communication was instantaneous with them. So they were in that state communicating telepathically, which I think is our natural, that is our natural and normal means of communicating. We blocked that. And I think a lot of that happens physically. I believe we'll really get off on a tangent here, but our body is a radio. It's a radio. And we have to tune our frequency in to communicate that way. And we have been conditioned to vibrate at a much lower frequency than what it takes to do that. The higher you raise your frequency, the more capability you have to tune yourself to receive communication that way. This is what I think drives psychic abilities, mediumistic abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, and clairsentience, which are, I believe, the 4 spiritual senses. You have 5 natural senses, you have 4 spiritual senses. And those spiritual senses are our natural way of sensing. That's the true way of sensing. I believe the body physically can block that. It blocks that because we're so associated with what we're sensing physically that we cannot tune that is the static that we get trying to tune our radio, our receiver. And you've heard me use this example even way back as a preacher teaching in Christian religion, that we're like an AM/FM radio. You have AM signal, which is like the natural signals that you're receiving. You've got spiritual signals, which are like the FM signals. And an AM radio cannot pick up an FM signal. You have to be tuned to the right frequencies. Even within that, you've then tuned, right? So as much as I thought that analogy makes, it makes even more sense now.
Well, that's the power of meditation. When you sit in meditation and you're still and you calm those senses, that allows you to tune into the other frequency.
Right.
And to fully experience this human journey, right? So because both of them have their benefits here. So yeah, absolutely.
All right. So how has your relationship with your body evolved over time? Has it felt like an ally, a project, a burden, a mystery? How have you processed that over time?
There's different seasons to how I viewed my body. When I was younger, it was more of a project. I guess, I don't know, maybe it even is now. as I get older and things start to slow down or things start to change. I definitely listen to my body a lot more now. I'm not necessarily always trying to improve my body in any way. I'm just trying to enjoy it while I'm in it. More manage it than anything else. Listen to it. Try to feed it the right things or not abuse it. But the more I pay attention, it becomes more of a partner than it is a hindrance. It allows me to do some really cool things. I'm appreciative of the body that I'm in. But I do know its limitations. I realize that's not a bad thing, that it's there for sometimes my own safety. But yeah, it's not always predictable. It's not always knowing what's going to happen each day, but it definitely talks, like I've said but earlier. And that's one thing that I've really come to pay attention to, is to listen to my body and see what it's telling me.
So I kind of take it a little bit of a different route. I'm not sure what my body's limitations are. I think there are some limits, but I'm pushing my body harder now than I've pushed it in a really, really long time. And in all honesty, I don't know how far I'm going to be able to push it. And granted, a lot of that's because of, the weight that I've had, some of the limitations I'm putting on it mentally here just recently. But I think the body is a fantastic part of who I am. I don't know what it can and can't do right now. It's going to be interesting here in the next, I'm going to say a year or two, and see what it can and can't do. I know the mind is doing a lot of it. I don't know what the body physically is doing right now.
I can see it responding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your body is responding to a change in mind.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely, it is.
A change in how you observe. You're observing differently, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there is that connection between the mind and the body. And I don't know. It'll be interesting. So I understand fully what you're saying, Joel, right? 100% what you're saying there. But it's it's amazing. There's a lot of things in the brain we don't know how it works. There's just a lot of little nuances about it that they just haven't quite fully figured out. But the more and more I learn about it, the lymphatic system, everything about it is just amazing.
Yeah. It's
So
another thing that's very connected.
yeah,
All the
absolutely.
different parts they're not individual pieces. They are different systems. We understand them in certain ways, but they're all completely connected. And that's one thing that's kind of cool to start to learn.
Absolutely. And I know you know a lot more about the body than I do. I fully know and respect that. But for me, yeah, and I talked about it a little bit in the very beginning about how my body has changed over time, and I'm just.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have a bit more of a materialistic view, given your education.
I did.
Medicine.
I definitely did. I came out with that condition, that traditional education.
Yeah.
Learned things based on what they thought they knew, and it took basically being out in the real world or coming from this different perspective of a spiritual mindset of the body to really see that it wasn't correct. That this isn't a machine. It is a machine, but it's much more than its individual parts. And we treat it. I mean, that's why we talked about this in one of those other podcasts, that basically we treat it as individual parts because doggone, to take care of my daughter and her overall health, I have to go see a nephrologist, an endocrinologist, all very specific things, all very specific doctors. But we don't treat the whole patient. We just treat that specific thing. Like I said, we can go talk about that at a different time. That's a whole other discussion. But
no, but it's still related to the physical body. We saw this with my mother and she had multiple system atrophy, which was a horrible disease in the brain where her gray matter was deteriorating, and gray matter is like the coating over electrical wires. Mm-hmm. And as that was deteriorating, the wires were touching all over different parts of her brain and affecting different parts of her body, which we thought were all individual or independent things happening. So we would go to this doctor and they would work on the effects of what they saw, an eye doctor, because she was having an eye problem or balance problems, and the fact is that all of it was centered in the brain, and it was all centered in a neurological issue. And those people are not neurologists.
Right. Well, they are in a way, but they're not focused that way.
No, they're cause and effect.
Correct. We're downstream from an actual, core issue. Right. The issue's somewhere else. We're dealing with the downstream effects of it.
Right.
And trying to fix the core problem. We're not actually trying to fix the actual core problem. We're just trying to fix the downstream effect. But how cool, as cool as that disease obviously is not, how cool a disease like that, Joe, coming from a health perspective, from my side of learning the body, to an electrical engineer yourself, it's essentially all it was a short circuiting of the electrical system.
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking too. And if you could have just stopped the short, you could have potentially fixed everything that was going on. But
doesn't that prove to us that everything is energy? It's all energy, right? Everything. We are not solid matter. This body, we think, because of what we see, we think it is solid, and it is not. It's vibrating constantly, and it's all energy, and
nor is it ever the same.
No, it changes constantly. So let me ask you this: you were an infant at one point? You had your body was totally different as an infant than it was as a small child, as it was as a teenager, as it is now as an adult. And I can tell you right now, as you get to a certain point, you start going the other way physically.
Yeah.
The body is constantly
shifting.
But think about it. Basically, I forget the exact length of time where they say the entire body has completely changed itself. Every cell in your body has completely
7 years, I think.
you look the same as you did 7 years ago. How cool is what that proves? What that proves is that the cell has memory.
Yep.
Because the cell replaces, basically you completely rechange your body. It's a completely new body physically in the cell, but it looks the same because it knows. It has actual intelligence. And Bruce Lipton's a scientist who basically said that. And he said basically the cell has memory. It understands and remembers what it is and what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to look, and it recreates you in the image you already are. And it's fascinating.
Yeah. Yep. It's programming. We are in the machine world in our day-to-day work. And a machine in and of itself cannot do anything that a program is not driving. Right? That's the brain of the machine, is the programming. And again, the machine is going to be reactive to the program. It's not proactively telling the program what to do. The program is telling the machine what to do. Right? So back to this question from my perspective, as a child, kids think of their body as a toy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They think of their body as a toy. And they touch it, and they have these sensations, and some of them they love, and they laugh, and you could tickle them, and they're touch parts of their body, and it's, they get senses and excited, and then what do we do with the child?
We tell them, don't touch that.
We start teaching them.
Yeah.
Oh, don't touch this. Don't touch that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And we're detaching them from those experiences that they're enjoying as a child.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great position in yoga called happy baby.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one too.
It's a great position because it helps your back and your shoulders and your hips and everything else. And when someone sees an adult in that position, they laugh. It's like,
right. But it's a normal position for a baby.
For a baby, you see that, and it's the cutest thing ever.
Right.
Right? It's like, well, why is it cute then and it's not cute now? I have to wonder, why is it not cute now?
Yeah.
Well, we've taught that out of ourselves, right?
Well, it's the cultural conditioning and all the things we've been talking about of how we are supposed to look at the body and how you look at the body as an adult versus when you're a child, or when, let's say you have an aging parent and you have to care for them, and you're going to see them in ways that you would never have imagined that you would have to see them and interact with them and deal with them. And there's this underlying guilt and shame. I've watched people when my mom was in care and needed people to help her with basic functioning, to see the response of people to what they were doing and the negative reactions to some of the things they had to do. It's amazing to me, the conditioning we have toward the body, and it's mostly conditioned to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Don't be seen. Go back to the Garden of Eden. The whole story of the Garden of Eden. They were naked, and they were not ashamed. Mm-hmm. They eat a piece of fruit, supposedly, and now all of a sudden they're ashamed. Mm-hmm. What really changed? What happened here? I don't understand the principle, that they're trying to get across. It teaches shame and separation.
Right? Absolutely, it does. But so the end of that question you have there is the mystery part of it. Is the body a mystery? So to me, the mystery to me is, what is it that we're not doing to allow our bodies to last longer than they do? Why do we have this?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Why do we have this mindset that the body is only good for 70 plus years, plus or minus a handful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was necessarily designed to just be good for just a specific period of time. So what are we doing as a society to basically, one, shorten that, or what are we doing to lengthen that? Or and as well, to the point of Grammy, why is it that at the end of our years, in that when we get to the end of that lifetime, why does it have to be riddled with disease, right? And riddled with the inability to move it,
right?
Where I think because we forgot how to heal, we forgot how to heal ourselves.
Here's a little nugget from the Christian thing as well. Look at the story of Moses. Moses was 120 years old, and what people don't realize is the end of Deuteronomy, the very last chapter of it, it basically, in its own language, basically says that he was still able to be sexually reproductive.
Yeah. His natural forces were not abated.
Correct.
Right.
It's a nice way of saying he could still, get it on at 120 years old.
Right.
That's a mystery to me. So what are we doing? Why are we creating a society and a world where our bodies fail us at the end of life? What should be the golden years where things are good and where you can relax and enjoy this life? We can't physically actually do it.
It's a script in my mind. Now, it's interesting because I one of the trainings that I've done, Jeffrey Allen, who, if you've not experienced him, go out and do some research on him. He's an energy healer.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that introduced me to energy healing as a principle. He talks in his training a lot about the fact that we follow a script.
Yeah,
we have been conditioned again to
think that this is the way it's supposed to be.
That this is how it's supposed to be. This is what your life is going to be. You're going to turn this age, so you're going to start deteriorating. So guess what? If you start thinking, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm 62 years old. I'm going to start deteriorating
today." By the way, happy birthday!
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And by the way, it's just my body that's 62 years old, or 62 really in 9 months. I'm eternal. And I think, and we're laughing, but I can tell you right now, that's the reason. Our body is following the mental script. Mm-hmm. What we believe, our thoughts about it are what drive that. I do believe we can live in fact, I think the body was designed to live for a very long or extended period of time. It did. And if you go back into the Old Testament and Hebrew scriptures, people who lived 700 and some odd years, right? How do they do that?
Right.
Well, because they did not.
That's to be taken literally.
Yeah, if it is. We know most of it's allegorical. But the fact is, the body is designed to live an extended period of time, and it's our script that drives it. Again, it's reactive. It's not proactive in that. It's reactive. It's funny today, as I was doing my, after I finished all my meditation things, and I was listening to a little podcast thing, they call them shorts, right, on YouTube, came up, and it was about a lady who was 72 years old, and she just doesn't look it. She doesn't act it. Her mind is not telling her body is deteriorating or that it can't do this and it can't do that. I think of my lovely Aunt June, who reached out this morning and wished me a happy birthday. She's 83 years old. And if she looks a day over 60, she doesn't. And I think that is her mind, her thoughts, her beliefs about drive what you see outwardly in so many cases. I think aging is a script that we've bought into.
Yeah.
You can argue with me if you want. As I like to say to people, you are where you are, and I am where I am.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but that's the mystery to me is how can we make these bodies live longer and be healthy at the same time? That's the mystery that I am always asking and probing when I do research or try to learn things. So.
Well, some of it goes back to the basic principles we'll talk about in our wisdom book, as within, so without. What you consume, we are what we eat. The natural body is of the earth. It is a microcosm of the earth. It's under natural law. If you stay in conformity with natural law, your body will respond with health and vitality and strength.
And a lot of this ties right back into our episode a few weeks ago with how we connect and are disconnected from our food and from the earth and all that kind of thing.
Right. So all of it ties together. It's all connected again. It's unity. It's what I love about the whole concept of unity. It all works together, and it's an integrated system.
Yeah.
Right.
It can be overwhelming. I can tell you that. I've been there before when I've gone down these rabbit holes and asked these questions. It can feel absolutely overwhelming. Then I start to realize how much of it did I actually have any control over anyway to begin with, and how much is it just going on without me having to be involved? So just let it go with the flow with it. You don't have to. And the more I try to control something, I think that's part of our overall issues with health too. The more we try to pin down one little problem in a reductionist mindset and basically control one specific thing, we lose control on something else. And if we can just learn to let that go, a lot of times it takes care of itself.
So one of the principles within healing, energy healing, is that the body has an innate wisdom.
1,000%.
The body has innate wisdom, and energy will respond to focus. It responds to awareness and concentration. And I firmly believe that we have the ability to capture energy and point it at specific areas of the body or other people who are having issues in their body. And with that energy, you can fix and heal circumstances. This is what does the laying on of hands and healing in Christian religion teach? It's the touching and transfer of energy, positive energy, into place of a negative energy, and helping people within themselves see their own energy, right? And to get them to stop associating with the illness or the disease. I am a diabetic. I am sick. I am this. I am that. Well, guess what? Yes, you are. And the more you say that, the more the universe gives you that.
Right.
That's right.
That was one cool thing when the girls were younger, when they would get a cut and you had to put a Band-Aid over it. Say, when you wake up in a couple of days, that cut, it's going to be gone. Your body just naturally knows how to heal itself. How cool is that? In a way, that makes us all Wolverines, right? We're all like Wolverine. We can heal ourselves. It's not quite as dramatic as Wolverine stories are, but we are. Our bodies naturally know how to heal itself. We don't actually do anything in that process. We can make it harder. The mindset we have, if we can make you can not heal as fast, but you can also heal faster based on your mindset.
Well, and sometimes it's amazing how fast it happens, and that's what's going on when a mother touches, their child when it hurts, and mom comes over and rubs your back, rubs your head where you bumped it, rubs the wound where it hurts, or kisses it better, right? A lot of that is the hands-on healing.
It's exactly so. With my granddaughters, that's one big thing when they have a boo-boo or something like that. I said, "Let me kiss it. Come here, let me kiss it."
Yeah, that's right.
And it's really
transfer of energy
to touch them.
Yeah.
And to be able to transfer that love and energy. And it's amazing how psychologically they feel better. Right?
Or we do it to ourselves when we bump our heads, right? Yep. What's the first thing you do when you bump your heads? Ooh, and you rub your head, right? And that's you providing your own healing to it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love it. I think that this is such a fun conversation, and there don't end. It doesn't end. There's just too many great topics to touch on. So let's one more good question here. So when I consider that my body is a community of systems and relationships, how does that influence my understanding of unity?
Did you say quick question?
Yeah. Dive in. That's a big one.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's something that we're learning more and more about in the health field, especially when it comes to say the fact that we have more bacteria in our body than we do our own cells. And the mind that is the microbiome inside of our bodies. I mean, it's the whole body is a intricate system, and you can piece it apart, we can tear it apart and study it, and it's perfectly fine to understand things that way. But we got to realize that nothing happens in a vacuum. You touch this system, it affects the other system. And our microbiomes, to bring that up, is basically a whole new field of study where we're realizing that our microbiomes are in really bad shape, and we're not feeding our bacteria, and they have that symbiotic relationship. There's a whole community within our own bodies that basically, without those bacteria, we would be dead. We would not be able to digest or absorb the nutrients we need. We would not be able to do and heal ourselves the way we need to, because they've even shown with rats where they've removed all the bacteria and made them sterile. They can't survive. They don't work. The body doesn't work the correct way. And it's fascinating because there's an entire community that lives just inside of our own body. And there's, it's all interdependent. It's all based on feedback, and it's all extremely interesting if you want to go down that.
So again, a lot of that, what you're describing though, is a microcosm of the natural systems in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You think of the population. So we have X, billion people in the world. Well, every person is like a cell or a bacteria or something in our body, right? It's a part of the overall community of Earth. Well, our body has that same, the population within our body is immense, right? They're all living elements, just like we are a living element on the Earth and part of an overall earthly system. I've come to believe that, and this was a significant change in my reading of Scripture, is I always looked at Scripture from an exoteric view, right? A broad, natural, literal viewpoint. I've come to see, though, that the depth, there is value in reading it that way, by the way. I'm not going to say there's not, there is, but it's limited.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at all those things from an esoteric view, that they're allegories, they're metaphors, and now that makes them lessons that are timeless, not specific elements in time. And but it goes back to the lesson of creation and Eden and the Garden of Eden. Eden in the Bible, many people believe was a literal physical place. May have been, don't think it was, based on the description that's there, because if you tried to put it on a map, you can't do it.
Or you could, but it could be at many different places, right?
Or you could.
That's right.
Or it's so big, there's no way.
We would have found it by now.
Right.
Or maybe it's all of Earth. Who knows, right? Yeah.
But don't question.
That's right.
That it was a literal place. I've come to see that the description not only of the lands that make up Eden, but the rivers that flow through Eden are all allegories and metaphor
imagery
for the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let me tell you, I think most of the Bible is teaching you about the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And it did it with secret language.
Mm-hmm.
The Garden of Eden is a metaphor for the body. The tabernacle that came was a metaphor for the body. The temple
itself,
is a metaphor for the body. And the New Jerusalem, that is all of those are, and all the Book of Revelation. You know why it doesn't make sense? Because you're trying to read it as though it's literal, and it's actually teaching you about the chakra system. It's teaching you about the body.
It's full of allegory.
It's a total allegory.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start looking at it from that perspective, it's amazing. How it all starts to kind of make sense.
Yep.
And that's been a profound learning for me. But to get back to the central point here is that all those systems work together. They're not independent of each other. They work together. There is a interdependence and a collaboration between the systems that has to be understood. And I hope modern medicine, in many cases, we're getting more and more specialized. I hope they aren't losing sight, though, of that interconnectedness. And sometimes I think they do.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There are starting to be more and more doctors and physicians who are turning to more towards like a functional health perspective, where it's big picture. They see the whole organism and all the parts of it and know how they interconnect and are interdependent. And they're not just focusing on just your kidneys. They're going to focus on something else as well to realize, to basically actually find the core root problem, as opposed to just putting a Band-Aid on the symptoms or the signs that we have, disease going on.
Well, there's an awful lot. I believe, I tend towards now metaphysical solutions to many things.
There's some power behind that for sure.
Well, and use your body as a dashboard, right? To tell you what the symptoms are.
Okay.
And, if you have this light on, it could represent this problem, and use it as your dashboard just to help you figure out what the problem actually is.
Mm-hmm.
It's been near-death experiences that have helped me kind of wrap my mind around these different systems within our body that are affected by the psychological and spiritual elements of our being. There's two specific that really jump out at me that are, to me, they're just critical. One is Eben Alexander, who was he was a neurosurgeon. He's alive. He's not dead. He almost died, which is why a near-death experience. But here you have somebody who, like you, trained in medical field, totally embracing the materialistic view, has this near-death experience, and then realizes he was brain dead.
But he wasn't gone.
But he wasn't gone.
Mm-hmm.
He still had consciousness and was having these impressive experiences. And now, how do you explain this? Because it was contradictory to everything he'd ever been taught.
Yep.
That was one. So if any of you listening have never been exposed to the story of Eben Alexander and know that near-death experience, I definitely recommend tapping into it. The other one is Anita Moorjani, who her story just is so fascinating to me because it goes back to her near-death experience. She was dying of cancer, lymphatic. So Joe talked about the lymphatic system. Hers was a lymphatic cancer. It was all over her body. She was totally consumed with tumors. At the very edge of death, has a near-death experience. And in that process, she learns and is confronted with what ultimately became the root cause for why she had cancer, and that was shame, guilt. And it was manifesting in her body as cancer. Now, she comes back, she realizes these things, and it completely changes her life. And within a matter of weeks, gone. Cancer's gone. You can believe, you cannot believe those stories. I tend to believe them. I believe that they're real.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks, we're going to have to bring this conversation to a general close. I really appreciate it. Leaves us with a lot more to talk about. So whether we understand ourselves primarily as a body, awareness, as a mystery that includes both, we are undeniably embodied in this moment. So we are bodies, and our bodies carry us through every conversation, every breath, every act of connection. So unity in the body doesn't require perfection. It just begins with attention, awareness, gratitude, a willingness to meet ourselves gently. So Joel, Joe, thank you so very much for your honesty and your insights and your thoughts. And for those listening, if this conversation invited you for just one moment to stop and appreciate your own embodied experience, we're going to let that be enough. So with that, we appreciate you listening, and the space between continues. As we come to a close, remember that this journey continues in many expressions. This podcast is part of a family of partner podcasts. Awakening Heaven on Earth. The space between heaven and earth and Living Heaven on Earth are 3 companion podcasts exploring spiritual awakening from complementary perspectives. Awakening Heaven on Earth offers the core teachings and mystical reflections on unity, love, and conscious living. The space between creates room for dialogue, reflection, and lived conversation around those teachings. Living Heaven on Earth focuses on basic spiritual practices that help embody these insights in daily life. Together, they form a unified journey of understanding, experience, and integration, inviting listeners to remember their connection with the divine, with one another, and with the living world. You can find all of them available on the same podcast streaming platforms wherever you listen. And if music helps carry these teachings deeper into the heart, the Unity, Awakening Heaven on Earth album is available on all major music streaming services as a musical companion to this journey. Wherever you engage, through listening, reflection, conversation, or music, may it gently remind you you are not separate. You belong to the one life, and heaven is already unfolding within you. Until next time, walk gently, love deeply, and embody heaven on earth.